Hello and welcome to the in-news series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Devedi, and in this segment today, we are going to discuss about the uniform minimum age for marriage for both boys and girls. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS Mains Paper 2 and 3. There are certain facts that are going to be important from the perspective of prelims exam and that too from the perspective of history. Okay, so let's begin. If we talk about the points of discussion, there are many, and as I am going to begin, be very careful with jotting down certain points. Try to make notes. If you are comfortable with screenshots, I will move away from the screen. You can take a screenshot as well. Okay, so these are the various topics that we are going to discuss, and as you can see, the headline suggests that in a recent move to give empowerment to the women of India, the government has finally decided to raise the age of marriage for girls from the current 18 years of age to 21 years. Now, this is not all of a sudden that the government has woken up from its sleep and took a decision like that. It is based on the recommendation of a committee that was formed last year. It was a task force headed by Jaya Jaitley. And because of the recommendations that were so intriguing, this decision has been taken. So in the light of all this only, we are going to first discuss about the background. And you can see about the background here that this news piece from the print has been taken, and it has suggested that it's written that in the year 2020, the government decided to have a task force. And the recommendations of the task force were, of course, now implemented because it doesn't take like 1 to 2 months to make recommendations. It takes a long time because many stakeholders have to be taken into consideration. What are their choices? What is their mindset and everything else? So, apart from Jaya Jaitley was heading this committee, and apart from that, the other very important and significant role that has been played by the member of the Niti Aayog, that is Dr. V.K. Paul. Okay, so Dr. V.K. Paul was also a part of this committee. If ever it is asked in your prelims exam that first of all, who has appointed this committee? The Ministry of Women and Child Development. Okay, next, who was heading this committee? Jaya Jaitley ji was heading this committee. Now, in the year 2020 itself, in the month of December, now it's almost a year now, the report was submitted to the Niti Aayog, and Niti Aayog after that made recommendations to the government based on that committee's recommendation, as it's a think tank, right? So you can see that here the recommendations along with the background. What is the background of the entire scenario? Of course, we have to look at the background. First, its mandate, what the task was given to this committee to examine the core. Remember, it's important to remember about the mandate as well. It can be asked in prelims and the statement can be distorted. So, the correlation of age of marriage and motherhood with respect to or in relevance or in reference with the health, medical well-being and nutritional status of mother. Also with the child during pregnancy, birth and after that. Okay, so basically what this committee was told, to have an approach where we can relate the age of marriage with the health, nutritional security of both the mother and the baby during the entire pregnancy, after birth and of course at birth as well. That means population was never at the core of the mandate. It wasn't said that please recommend this, make some recommendations with respect to reducing total fertility rate. It was never like that. The basic issue that the committee dealt with was, of course, women empowerment, making more socio-economic opportunities that are not available to the women who are married off at an early age to them. Of course, if we raise the age, more opportunities will be provided to them. and that will of course need the legal backing, and the legal backing has come. Okay, now infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate were also a part of it. Okay, and also remember that according to the National Family Health Survey, for the first time ever, the total fertility rate is 2.0, and the total it's much below than what we expected. So population explosion is not very likely in the near future. Every woman, each woman is now trying to have 2 children. There are 2 children per woman. Okay. The empowerment of women who are cut off from the access of education, of course, if we would have been married at an early age, we wouldn't have gotten so many opportunities, because our role in the society is as the primary caregivers of the family. Whenever a woman is married, she by default becomes the primary caregiver, not only to the family, but of course to the child. Men are not expected right now. Also, men are not expected to live up to the role of caregivers. Forget about primary caregivers. Okay, so empowerment of women who were cut off from the access because of they had obligations which are domestic in nature. That is why this committee was formed. And if we talk about what are the laws that are going to be amended, now legal backing is to be given. The government will amend the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act of 2006. Also, if we talk about other important law, Hindu Marriage Act will also be amended, and Special Marriage Act of 1954 will also be amended. Now, according to the Hindu Marriage Act, Article 5, Clause 3, it suggests that the age of a girl to get married is 18, and for boys it's 21. Similarly, for Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, it's 18 and it's 21 for boys. 18 for girls, 21 for boys. Similarly, Special Marriage Act has also given the same age. So there is congruency. But if we talk about the background of the entire scenario, where all it started, when people started knowing about, yes, we have to take care of girls who are getting married at such an early age. It started in 1891, the Age of Consent Act, when there was an awareness at such a level that Queen Victoria was given a letter by a small girl who was married off at a really early age. She fought and fought and fought, and finally she wrote to the Queen Empress of India, and that was Queen Victoria, when this law, which is also known as the Act 10 of 1891, it raised the age of consent, remember, not marriage, age of consent for both married and unmarried girls. Consent means agreement, from 10 to 12 years of age. Now, girls, not women, below the age of 12 years were not to be married. Then came the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 1929, also known as very famously by the sponsor's name, Harbilas Sharda, that is the Sharda Act of 1929. So it raised the age of marriage for girls to 14 and for boys it's 18. Now that was also amended in 1978, and the age was what? 18 for girls and 21 for boys. Okay, so let's move forward and talk about the current scenario. What is the mindset of the country right now? According to the Ministry of Women and Child Development, they wanted to standardize the minimum age of marriage at 18 years for both men and women. Okay, under the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act of 2006. Uniformity is important. Uniformity is important because it will give at least, not immediately, but after a certain period of time, the approach of the society can be overturned by making it legally acceptable and socially acceptable to them that boys and girls are equal, and that is why they have uniform year to be called as an adult. The Law Commission in 2008 said a uniform age of marriage for boys and girls should be at 18 years and not 21. Moving on, The National Human Rights Commission in 2018 said that there should be recommendation that the uniform age of marriage for boys and girls should be the same. Okay? And the Supreme Court in the independent thought case also had the similar views that uniformity is needed. So I have put the name of the case if it is asked in the prelims. And as you can see throughout the years, such a big shift has come. It's a little late, but still very significant. The recommendation of the current committee, the Jaya Jaitley committee, has said that the age of marriage for women should be increased to 21 years. And this decision is not a blind decision. 16 universities, through the 16 universities, survey was conducted. 15 NGOs were also involved in conducting survey from far-flung areas, marginalized groups, scheduled tribes and scheduled castes. People, especially the target group was young women. From Rajasthan as well, where child marriage is very prevalent. So they said that the minimum age of marriage, the mean years, they said it should be 22 to 23, but we have reached to 21. The government should, second recommendation is that the government should look into increasing access to school for girls and colleges also, including transportation to these institutions from far-flung areas. Of course, that's done. Age is increased, but what about the opportunities that are needed for making a greater social impact? That means educating women and taking care of their safety with respect to their transportation, where transportation is not available, connectivity is not available. Second recommendation is that skill and business training is a must, not only theoretical but vocational as well, so that even if a female does not have proper means to support higher education, she can at least be financially independent. That is why we need empowerment through financial independence. Sex education must be made mandatory in school, because if we keep on considering sex as something of a taboo, if no discussion, no normalization happens, it will keep on being a taboo, and that is why children will resort to unfair and very dangerous means to acquire knowledge about them. Not only in schools, but parents should also encourage healthy and very scientific sex talks. It's very important, especially now when children are much more vulnerable to digital cyberbullying, pornography threats. The committee said that these deliveries must come first. Awareness campaign should be launched at the social level, so that whenever such sort of change comes, it does not go through protests. If any change is very abrupt in nature, protests are bound to happen, because it's very new to the society. So social change is at the root of any kind of change that has remained a social cause. You're getting me? Minimum age for marriage for girls being a burden on the financial means of the parents. It is something that is deep rooted in the social mindset. So awareness has to strike at the social roots and not just legal roots. Again, encourage social acceptance of the new legislation. It will follow. Whenever social awareness will take place, social acceptance will follow. Moving on. Some advantages are there. Many disadvantages are also there, because as a bureaucrat, you are preparing for UPSC, you will become a bureaucrat. You have to understand anything will have pros and cons for a more balanced approach. So advantage is gender equality, uniformity in age, that means hopefully uniformity in access, uniformity in approach by the society towards both the genders. First is that. Secondly, demographic benefit. As the National Family Health Survey has already said that total fertility rate for the first time is 2.0. So we have to understand that we have to sustain this demographic benefit. If we raise the age of women, they will get more opportunities, and they will be better equipped with the knowledge of having a nuclear family, and the advantages of having not to go through the periodic birth and birth and birth, and of course pregnancy and birth and pregnancy and birth, and what will happen, it will take a toll on the health of the mother. Second is that health benefits, of course, when the woman is well educated, well aware of the benefits of having a nuclear family, of even if they do not want to have a nuclear family, if they want to have 3 children, 4 children, it is important that they should be aware of the pros and cons and then make an informed choice. Social perception revision. Of course, since 1891, since the Age of Consent Act, we have seen that society can change. Society is not stagnant. Any society which remains stagnant will start to rot. We do not have to rot. We have to keep upgrading ourselves, and that is happening in India. Although at a slower pace, but at a much more deep level. So that's important, that a legislation is needed to rouse the awareness. It won't be overnight, but it will start a revision that has already been done since 1891. Let's move forward and talk about disadvantages. There are going to be disadvantages, trust me. First is that age of consent becomes coterminous with age of marriage. Now, if any person, any girl child, I am saying here like 19 or 20 years of age, if she has a relationship, but now the legal age for marriage is 21, here consent becomes coterminous with marriage. That means the lady below the age of 21 years, she is not well trained enough to consent to her own body with the guy she is in relationship with. Okay, so that can be first thing. Second, they won't be considered as adults. This can be something. They won't be considered as adults. Why? Because the age of marriage is now 21 years of age. A 20-year-old girl will not be able, according to the society, if the society starts to weaponize this legality, that she is not well aware as she is below 21 years of age. Tool for exploitation by parents. Prohibition of Child Marriage Act has been used as a tool for exploitation. If any child elopes with the person they love, now the parents are using the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act against the boy or against the boy's family, that they have abducted the girl child. It's because it's self-arranged. The marriage might be self-arranged and it's not healthy for them according to the act. So weaponization will also occur. Social validity of the already conducted marriages, the child marriages, if they are accepted by the society, them being legal or illegal doesn't matter. Of course, child marriages are still prevalent in India. Now, even according to the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, it doesn't become void until and unless the minor, when comes of age, goes to the court and says, I do not agree to this marriage. And it's hard to implement. Again, the recent NCRB data shows that there has been an increment in the percentage of child marriage throughout the pandemic. So that's something what we couldn't implement since 2006. How can we accept us as a society to implement this new legal act? Moving on. Now, if we talk about the conclusion, first we have to strike at the social makeup of the entire society, of course, by enhancing gender equality. That means not discriminating children on the basis of their gender, not telling them that they are different from the other gender, not telling them that they might be less capable of doing something which the other gender can or has already done. Women have given equal opportunities as men, and men also not being treated to have certain styles to be congruent to female. It's considered, it's very funny in our society. If somebody calls their daughter as their son, it's something to be very proud of. If somebody will call the son as their daughter, it's a shame. isn't it? So we have to change as a society. Age of sexual consent should be talked about. It's very important because nature has made children so that after getting to a certain point of age, they will start feeling, because it's just the hormones, it's the nature's makeup. There is nothing to be ashamed of. But the talks about it are not a lot. Thirdly, PCMA declared child marriage void ab initio. Now, what does this mean? Void ab initio, that means it is void from the very beginning. It's very important. It hasn't done that yet. In Karnataka model, we have seen in 2017, the government of Karnataka passed an act in which it was said that child marriages are void ab initio. That means from the very beginning. It will not be considered as a marriage if it is a child marriage. But the society has accepted it, and because of that only, we haven't been able to change. Even if we talk about the NCRB data, Karnataka stands first when we talk about child marriages. 66% increment if we compare the 2 years of 2019 and 20. And quality education, which also has sex education as a part, should be integrated along with creation of awareness, which has remained at the core of the recommendation of the committee, Jaya Jaitley committee. Moving on, let's talk about the means-based question. Okay, please practice it. Critically analyze the decision of the government to implement the uniform minimum age of marriage for girls. Also, suggest the other initiatives that the government can undertake for better empowerment of young women in 250 words. Okay, so that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.